I understand calling for a rematch in a sense that you get the public behind you, saying, oh, you know you didn't win that fight. He said to me, he said, you deserve it. You won that fight. You beat me.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I also think so. I'm not going to... Yeah. There was never bad blood for me. He tried to make it that way because I said something that was true and he didn't like it because it took his niche. And I said it, and here we are. Where did my belt go? Where are we now? We are in South Africa. I am home. And I brought the belt to Africa where I live.
Welcome, guys, to Super Sport Unplugged. It's here, Cooks. I'm joined by Jam, the second funniest person in this room. And then I've got Dricus du Plessis, but most importantly, Champ, Dricus du Plessis. Champ, how are you feeling?
Absolutely great. Thanks for having me. It's been a great day. You know, arriving in and back home in South Africa, I have to say I couldn't wait to get home, especially the last 2 hours on this flight. I couldn't wait to put my feet on the ground. And when I got to the airport, I mean, I knew there was going to be some form of a reception, but I thought maybe like 100, maybe 200 people. It was insane. It was incredible. And then, you know, coming to the multi-choice officers, Supersport, and having the whole atmosphere and seeing the whole country celebrating not only me, but this achievement for South Africa, it's been incredible.
I mean, when you landed, I mean, and obviously got that Joburg altitude hitting in your face, what is this, your initial reaction seeing all those people there? I mean, like you mentioned your love for the Springboks. Did you feel like a buck at that time, seeing all those people there at the airport just to welcome you back home? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me as a kid, as any young kid, I think representing your country in any sport or in anything is a very big deal. It's a very proud moment. Like I said, this was the proudest moment of my life today when I walked in, put my feet back on South African soil. It felt absolutely incredible, and yeah, 100% I felt like a Springbok. I mean, essentially, you've won the World Cup of MMA. I mean, you are world champion, the middleweight world champion, the first from South Africa. It's got a nice ring to it. Yeah, I mean, every time I hear it, I can't believe it. I remember Sunday morning when I woke up, and I was lying in bed, and Fasti was lying next to me, and I just felt her next to me, but I was lying this way, and I just had that right in my arm. And this is not even a joke. I promise I slept with that belt next to me. And it really felt like a dream when I woke up. It felt like a dream, but I knew it wasn't a dream when I couldn't walk to the bathroom. I had to crawl. So I knew it wasn't. The bruises on the leg. I knew it wasn't a dream because the pain felt very real. Yeah.
I want to ask from the start, MMA. Do you start with boxing? What is the actual? Where did you start this path?
Yeah, my path started very, very young, but it was never where my love started and my passion for this started probably at the age of 14, yeah. But I started with judo when I was 5 alongside my brothers. They were both national champions multiple times. I was never a national champion. We moved away from where we lived in the Free State in Welkom. And yeah, after I did judo for 5 years. I was really good, but I wasn't old enough to compete for SA Colors yet. Yeah. And then I took up wrestling, a couple of years of wrestling. Wasn't too fond of wrestling at that stage because it was so different. And I mean, we only did this as extracurricular activities after school. Yeah. And then I started watching movies, fight movies, you know, like every kid going through the Karate Kid.
Van Damme movies.
And I mean, my face just didn't go away. I just loved it. And I mean, I got a boxing bag from my brother for Christmas. I asked him for that, or for my birthday, something like that. And 2 weeks later, I had my first kickboxing fight as an amateur. I didn't even have a coach then. And then I got a coach and I started, you know, after that first kickboxing fight as a 15-year-old, I was in love with the sport. And MMA always became that was always the ultimate, to be able to compete. And then obviously going to the EFC and watching my first live event. I think I was 15 or 16 when at EFC 10. And I walked into the Coca-Cola Dome still back then. And I just thought, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to do this. I want to have a fight.
That was like 10,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, that was insane. Yeah. I mean, I walked in there and I mean, I watched I still remember I walked in on Don Madge's debut fight, just as a form of reference. And I was 15, 16 years old. And seeing that crowd, watching these people fight under the bright lights, that immediately became my dream.
But then, Dricus, I understand you said you were 15, you had your first kickboxing fight. But I mean, there comes a stage, like, we're not fighting at school where you're like, I'm actually quite good at this fighting thing. You can't just be fighting.
It could be a career.
It could be a career. Like, surely, like, after a while, you go, like, I won a few fights at first break, a few fights at second break. Like, I've gone a month unbeaten at school in grade 4. Like, when do you know, like, I can actually fight?
Well, that's a very good point because, you know, when you do those fights in school, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But the great thing was I have 2 older brothers, and I always lost that fight. But I did get closer every time. I got closer, but...
what about now?
Now they can both come.
I'm sure there's some guys from your high school like, yeah, I fought Dricus back in...
And I beat him.
I beat him like second break, 2009.
This guy's like, I'm making a comeback. I'm going to be world champion.
Talking smack and, you know...
But, I mean, no, that is exactly it. Where I decided I want to do this for a living was there was never been a WACO world champion. That is a very big organization in kickboxing from South Africa. And once again, I fought junior world champs when I was 18 in matric. And we went to the world champs in Slovakia for K1 kickboxing. And it was the same kind of atmosphere. We go to compete, we don't go there to win as South Africa. Just the people you compete against. Let's take Russia, for example. They compete internationally every other weekend just because they are in Europe and Asia. And I mean, all these Eastern European countries, they can, via train, it's a 2-hour travel, and they compete internationally all the time, where we don't have that many fighters. So we compete against the same guys the whole time, and you don't have that. You're in your weight division, firstly. And in total, you don't have that many people into the sport. And I went there and I became world champion, and that was something special. That was the first time that, as an amateur, where history was made in fighting. Well, not the first time ever for South Africa, but the first South African to become a world champion at the WACO K1 World Champs as a junior. And that's when I knew I had something special. I knew I had what it takes, and how hungry that made me feel. I knew I had it in me to be a world champion, and that's where I really decided I want to do this. I can go all the way with this.
I mean, leading up to the Strickland fight, I don't think a lot of people realize that you've been competing for belts, defending titles in various organizations. You left UFC to go to KSW, and you won the title there. So going into the Strickland fight, like the pressure, the lights, it was kind of something that you were used to, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think... and people say, yeah, but you've never fought for a UFC title, which is very true.
Yeah.
But I did have a double UFC champ, making history there.
Yeah.
I did go, the first South African to go to a major organization and fight for a bout at KSW. The pressure, I mean, the KSW show had more than 30,000 people in live attendance. It's insane. Yeah. And at that stage in my life, when I was fighting in UFC for a bout, or the second bout, or the KSW bout, where I was in my life and what that moment meant to me, exactly the same as this world title. No, this wasn't in reach. So for me, that fight was just as important. The pressure I felt was exactly the same as I felt for this. But I have to say, when I walked out to this fight, I've never felt so calm walking out to a fight in my whole life. You know, there was all these thoughts and everything came together, but that's just a testimony of my team and what we've done to prepare for this. I just knew there was nothing more we could have done to be ready for this fight. And I had a sense of what's going to happen is going to happen, but you couldn't do anything more than what you did to prepare for this fight. So I walked out to that octagon, and I knew that I was going to be world champion. And I knew that I did enough to be world champion. And if I didn't win this title Saturday, it would have been the right thing that happened. Because I honestly thought that I was going to be the world champion. I walked out of there and I had this calm feeling of we did everything in our power to prepare for this. And that's incredible. And, you know, that experience that I got in the EFC and the local scene, just like I always tell the young up-and-coming fighters, be a part of that local scene, because the EFC taught me the experience of being used to being a champion. And that helped me, that pulled me through on Saturday night.
Jam, how do you say "and you" in isiXhosa?
Hey, bro, you put it
No, I know, but you've been championing for that. So.
I don't know exactly how to say it, Xhosa. You're putting me on the spot, man.
Okay. Sorry,
My Xhosa is not that deep.
He's
I'm sure the
calling-
commentator. Cooks, can you not take this one?
And you in Xhosa, probably Inchantshele Entsha.
Inchantshele Entsha.
It doesn't run
You
the
say
same way.
I don't know.
Yeah. We're looking at you like you got the. We asked you.
Hey, neither.
Hey, what do you think?
Yeah, like you want my opinion?
But Dricus, I mean, you saw there was, Afrikaans commentary, Xhosa commentary. Thank you, Jam, for your work, for making sure.
That is amazing. Well done on that.
Yeah,
When I saw that, we had to make this.
No, but that was the whole thing, man. I was speaking to someone off air about like some of the previous like boxing champions we've had, Dingan Tobela and those guys.
100%.
And I don't think even them, respect to them, but I don't think it was ever done at this level. So I think we did need something like this where
Yeah, absolutely, and it was.
broadcasting in three languages.
I mean, I can't wait. I haven't watched the fight back at all, and I'm definitely watching this fight.
Yeah.
Because I commentated first.
Yeah. No, they were spicy. They were very spicy.
Yeah, that's
Did you at least see the video when they announced you being champion of Afrikaans in Xhosa?
Yeah, I watched that one. Yeah, that I saw.
Oh, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, it felt incredible to know that is like that showed that it made sense to do it in South Africa. If you understand what I mean, that we could do Afrikaans, English, and Xhosa commentary, meant that was the amount of people that wanted to watch this.
Yeah.
And that is so cool to
Did
know.
you see the videos of like people at like 5 a.m.?
That was the coolest thing when I stood in the cage after the fight. Sorry, octagon. I'm not supposed to say cage. I stood there and they showed me while DC was talking to me. He said, "Look at South Africa right now," and then they showed like the fan
The watch party was
the watch party.
Yeah. That was amazing.
That was incredible to see, and that was. And the first time I actually saw it was before we walked out. I was standing in my dressing room, and they were playing that before the fight. They were broadcasting the watch parties. And just before I walk out, and I looked and there was one guy I recognized, and I was like, "What's happening there?" And the whole team knows it, and everybody's like, "What's he doing on the TV?" What? And then we saw it's the watch party, but that was so special to see.
Yeah.
Do you think those people? I mean, Victoria loves a party. Just that. Do you think those people slept, or they just got to the watch party?
No, there's no ways. There's no ways. Everybody always makes the plan. No, we sleep, and then we watch the fights. Never happens that way.
I didn't sleep because I was scared I was going to miss it.
Yeah, no, the people never, they say, "Okay, now let's have a little braai until 10, go to sleep, and then we're fresh for the fight." It never ends up that way.
But you watch every UFC on Sunday morning, right?
Yeah.
You up early and you tune in and watch the UFC on SuperSport every
Yes.
morning. You don't miss it, right?
Yeah, I don't miss the UFC.
So how does...
If it happens in a way, like if we had a late night or anything like that, the first thing I do when I wake up is watch the fights. But mostly I watch the fights live.
And what's it like being in the UFC, watching UFC? You know what I mean? Like us mere mortals will never know what that feels like. But maybe take us there.
I think it's a very different for everybody, because I know there's quite a few fighters who say, "I don't watch fights." They don't watch fights. They're just too involved with the sport to really enjoy watching fights. And I understand where they're coming from, because there's just a part of me when I watch fights, I can't help but put myself in that situation and start analyzing. It's sometimes hard just to sit back and enjoy the fight. But this only happens when I'm getting closer to my fight. But for me, that's how I started with this journey. Is I'm a fight fan first before I became a competitor. Is I just couldn't get enough of watching fights. And I'm still there. And that's all I do. I watch fights. When I'm in front of the TV, I'm on YouTube watching fights, watching all fights. I don't think there's a fight on this planet I haven't watched. Watching fights is, as a fighter, it's great because in my house, me and my brothers, it's so great because we go, friends, my brothers, and we go, okay, who do you think is going to win? And I'll say, I think that guy's going to win. And my brother says, there's no way. We'll put breakfast on it. So that's every Sunday story. So one of us buying breakfast or lunch because we still like bet against each other and saying, I think this guy's winning, I think this guy's winning. And the fact that you're a professional fighter yourself doesn't change the fact that you know the game because it's the fight game. Yeah. Nobody ever knows. That's why underdogs win.
You said you were calm going into it. I mean, there's been a lot said about Strickland. Is he really a bit of a dwarf, or is he okay?
Strickland, actually...
Is he a nice guy? Like, did you chat to him afterwards?
I chatted to him afterwards, but then I saw his tweet saying that I understand calling for a rematch in a sense that you get the public behind you, saying, oh, you know you didn't win that fight. He came to me in the cage, and this is, I think this is the first time publicly I'll say this, is he came to me in the cage directly after the fight, before they announced me as the new champion.
Yeah.
And I went to him and I shook his hand and I said, you're a warrior, well done, it was a great fight. And he said, no, you definitely beat me. He said that to me.
He said it to you?
He said to me, he said, you deserve it, you won that fight, you beat me.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I also think so. I'm not gonna, yeah, I have to agree with you on that. And after I won the fight, you know, you could see it in his face. He knew, when the ref held our hands, he went like this. He knew he wasn't winning that fight. Yeah. And then, of course, he talks about the headbutt, which is not true. I remember the exact punch I caught him with when his eyes started bleeding.
You show us on Jam Jam, that exact punch. You want to make sure it's a headbutt. You want to make sure.
Just make sure. Magic.
Yeah, and then afterwards, when we were in the doctor's rooms, he came to me and he said, you're a warrior. I wouldn't have wanted to lose to anybody else because, you know, you deserve this. But then he goes on Twitter and he says, you will never be a champion or something along those lines. And just the way he said it, to ask for a rematch is one thing in the way you want to, but I have to say, I have nothing against the guys. What I've experienced is not really, I think he's an emotional guy. Yeah. Let's be honest, but I don't think he's a bad dude.
And does he punch harder outside of the octagon or inside of the octagon?
Yeah, what happened with that, with the little dust at the UFC? Yeah. That was...
It was
you asked the kids to move aside.
I knew how hard he punches. He doesn't punch that hard. My face told a different story, but I mean, you shouldn't be taking so many punches with those small gloves anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, like, does it ever get personal? Like, is there like a line that ever gets crossed, like in a build-up to a fight, or? Because I mean, like, for me to get in a fight, I must really dislike someone. Like, for you, it's your job.
Yeah.
Like, you must go there and beat people up. You know. So, like, is there a line that ever gets crossed?
To me personally, there is no line. There's nothing anybody would ever be able to say that's going to get me out of my zone. And I think that's a mental strength and a capability that any fighter needs. And some fighters don't have it. And me as a fighter went out there to trigger Sean Strickland when we had that press conference. And that wasn't my game plan originally because I don't usually do that. But then he tried to, you know, go the bully route, and he got triggered. Yeah. And the one thing with that is, as soon as that happens, you're in trouble. And I think he got his thoughts together again by the time we fought. But to me, all is fair in love and war, and I'm going to war when I'm out there. So there's nothing somebody's going to say to me that's going to affect me come fight night. I feel immune to that, to be honest.
On fight night, did you feel like I've got this guy? Like, did you feel like the mental game you had won it? Now it was just about the actual fight.
There was a time in the fight where I think round one he came out and he felt good.
Oh, the jab was on point.
And his jab was on point. We had a certain game plan of the first 2 rounds fighting his fight, going very low impact in terms of not throwing for the big shots, making sure we get a takedown in every round. And then after the first round, I told my coaches, listen, I think we need to do more because that wasn't great.
Dricus, now it's time to take the gloves off now. Now we're going to ask the real questions. I feel like you're warm now.
Yeah.
Dricus, how would you explain sort of MMA to like a 6-year-old, like in terms of the scoring, like split decision, like, because we just hear like 48, 47, like how do you explain it to the casual or a kid who's watching for the first time?
when I was UFC champion, the level of competition I was fighting was world class. It was in the arena I was fighting at, the broadcasting, everything was very close to the level of the UFC. So that is an important part because that's what prepares you for this big stage. And the fighters need to want to build MMA in South Africa, and they need to want to fight for UFC, be a champion in the UFC, and use that as a stepping stone to elevate you to the next level. And I think this is going to be incredible for the UFC, and I think it's going to be incredible for the talent because we have a lot of talent. I mean, I speak for my own team right now. We have to be the best team on the African continent. Team Pretoria. Under great coach Morné Visser, and with the one thing with Morné, he's delivered so many champions. I can't even begin with his credentials, and he's been in this game forever. And right now we have the #1 fighter in the world out of that gym in Pretoria. We've always done it the same way we do it, and we figured out this style that looks awkward to the rest of the world. And they asked me about it for this fight too, and I said, we have developed a style that is more efficient than anybody else's in the world. That's why it's weird, because it's a better style. People will play catch up for a very long time, in my opinion. And they are catching up now, because now we are being studied. Up until now, they were just thinking, they fight weird. And now they go, okay, well, they are world champions, so they are doing something right.
Did you switch your stance? I mean, the pace is like different.
It looks different. It looks different. You can see it because that's how we train. We have a style that is more efficient, in our opinions, and it showed this weekend. And then, of course, I know he's already in the UFC. We have Cameron Simon, who, I mean, the kid's 23 years old. He's going to be a world champion undoubtedly one day. I started coaching Cameron when he was 13 years old. 13, 14, and he's just been at it for 10 years, and now he trains alongside me, and he's also in the UFC, and he had a loss in his last fight, but that means nothing at that age, nothing. That was an experience that he needed, but he's going to be a world champion one day. And then of course we have Mark Hume, who, I mean, he flew out with me to Canada as a training partner, and as we landed in Canada, my coach just messaged me and said, so we have a fight for Mark. And that was, maybe 10 days out from the fight, 2 weeks from the fight. The day before me, he fought as well. He got a big win in front of Dana White. So now he's on the radar. He's on the radar, and now we have guys. We have Nkazimuli Zulu, who's also a champion in the EFC. I think he's fighting for another belt.
7 March, yeah.
He's world class. I see these guys. I train with these guys. We have Dricus du Plessis as well, not my brother, but he definitely fights like a du Plessis, I can tell you that. We have guys that are, and a big role that's played here is also age, because there comes a certain age where it's just not going to happen, because the UFC won't allow that. But we have some, and even at our amateurs, we have some guys that are coming through the amateur ranks. That's one thing that's impressing me so much, to see them mount. I think we have 140 amateurs, if I'm not mistaken, at the gym now. Not all of them are training to compete, but just to have them in that environment. So many people say, no, they never want to compete. They just want to train this for the fitness, or they enjoy it. There's no way when you start enjoying it that you don't want to compete at least once.
So Jam, I want to swap you with another extremely funny person. Radio Rubs, come and join us up here. Hello, Radio. Dricus, how are you?
Hello, Radio.
Nice. Listen, Dricus touched on the celebrations afterwards. Tell me the truth. How many of the prize money is won? How many is that going to beers and brandies and cokes?
Look, I always people ask me, like, listen, is he a guy that likes the celebratory side? Am I creating words?
Celebratories. Is that a hybrid? Celebrity and celebrate.
There's one thing that he does better than fighting, and that's partying. I'll tell him now. It's. I tried with the down thing, and look, I'm a swallower. I don't know if that's how that sounds, but he has this new. He's further down the line in evolution, where he actually unlocks the swallowing mechanism, and it's like just pulling stuff.
There's no
down
gag
the drain.
reflex. Almost.
There's nothing. There's
Guys,
like
this took a turn. Like,
no tears in the eyes, no burp coming. It's just like, thank you, I'll have this and I'll have another one.
Dricus, when was your welcome to UFC moment? I mean, was it when you meet Dana White? Was it, I mean, Dricus talking about seeing Mark Wahlberg out of Drop the Hard Montreal. My job is done here if I see Mark Wahlberg. But when was your first, like, oh, this is actually the UFC?
Yeah, I think the first fight was a very different UFC experience than anybody would actually get if you're fighting on a big card, because I fought on Fight Island because it was during COVID.
Yeah.
So there was no crowd. It wasn't the UFC experience that you would think. So we were basically, there was nobody. You couldn't hear.
You hear the feet moving.
You can hear every shot. It sounds in. I can hear my corner perfectly. And then my second fight in the UFC, I fight on the undercard for Conor McGregor and the Dyson Poirier. So I mean, then you have 23,000 people going absolutely crazy. But I have to say, my welcome to UFC moment. Yeah, there's so many that I'm just, at the top of my.
Because it was you finished.
I mean.
Was it Trevin Giles?
Yeah, that was my second fight, Trevin Giles, on the Conor McGregor card. I think that was my breakthrough moment, just in terms of, and then I got a performance bonus for that. That was a breakthrough moment for me. And then, I was in Vegas and I performed, and after that performance, they've only put me on big pay-per-view cards. And that's a place where you want to be with the company, because at the end of the day, they can put you wherever they want, especially in that early stage of your career. And it helps if you put up entertaining fights and fights that people want to watch, because now they make sure you are on the right cards, because they need more eyes on that cards. And that's a very special thing to have. And that's a very important thing to have, because if the UFC has decided that this guy is a boring fighter or people don't like to watch him, it's a hard work. I mean, the UFC has over, I think, 2,000 athletes. So to get seen from between all those, I mean, just to put it in perspective, Sean Strickland had 23 or 28 UFC fights before he got a title shot, before he fought for a belt. I just had my 7th fight now for the belt. I had 6 fights before I got a title shot. And obviously winning is a big part of that, but also you can be winning, but if you're not entertaining, they're going to keep you down for as long as possible, because at the end of the day, people are paying to be entertained. Well, now with this fight specifically, now having my parents there, having both my brothers there, my sister-in-laws, my brother, my niece, nephew, having my best friends there, guys like Dricus, having them as dear, having just, my whole friend crew, the inner circle. Well, I would say at least 90% of them were there. People who paid a lot of money, use their savings, people. I mean, it doesn't get more special than that. Having all these people, and I appreciate that so much, being there and seeing your friends, not asking me to pay for them. Yeah. No, just, being there. Don't worry about free tickets. Everybody just showed up. Having my mom and dad in that cage, and both my brothers, just as a family, having both my brothers there. And we've been through this whole journey together where I promised my dad that, I promise you I'll get you that UFC title, because that was one that we needed to tick.
Yeah.
And, just seeing your dad in there, also so emotional. And like they always say, your dad is the one guy who really wants you to be better than him. And to see what it meant for my mom and my dad and what it meant for me to have them there. It was with my brothers, with both my brothers. It was an absolutely incredible experience, and it's something that will never happen again. Even if I go up and win another belt and have that exact same moment, it will never be the first time. Yeah. It will never feel the same as it did.
I've got to ask, there's a lot of banter about Israel Adesanya living rent-free in his head at the moment. I mean, is there beef between you guys? Is it really, when he came out and faced you, after the Whittaker fight, it looked like there was serious bad blood. You obviously were composed. I know Mornay was like, hey, got to go now. But is there bad blood between you guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, a big thing with that is there was never bad blood for me. He tried to make it that way because I said something that was true, and he didn't like it because it took his niche. And I said it, and here we are. Where did my belt go? Where are we now? We are in South Africa. I am home. And I brought the belt to Africa where I live. So, I mean, that is all said and done. And the big thing is, he made it personal for himself. Do I like Israel Adesanya? No. Will we have a beer? No. I don't think he's a fun guy. He does not look like somebody that I would be friends with. Don't know him that well, just the way he acts, and it's fine. Like, everybody doesn't like each other. It's not how the world works. But, you know, Sean Strickland, will I have a beer with him? 100%. I think there is a world where we can be friends. A guy like Robert Whittaker, sure. Me and Israel Adesanya, I don't think we like each other. But, like I said, we don't know each other. But when it comes to the fighting, for me, it's not personal. The reason why I wanted anything to do with him was because he had a title. Yeah. And right now I have the title. And then he made the threats of that he'll come to South Africa and beat me on home soil. That's not going to happen. And I want to show the world that it's not going to happen. It's a completely different environment, fighting even in Vegas, than fighting in South Africa. And that's why it's so important to me to get that fight right here at home.
Altitude, please.
Altitude, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because talking about people who do actually like you, we do have a couple of fan questions. We're going to choose one, but you can't back out of these questions.
Oh, great.
And then choose one.
It feels like I'm being set up.
One as well. No, listen, these
and I don't trust Dricus. I think he's just going to make stuff up. Sure.
No, we can't let you go without answering some fan questions. So, Luton_09 asks, if you could fight anyone, dead or alive, who would you pick?
Does he have to be a fighter? You know what I'm saying? Or like
any fighter.
Dead or alive.
Yeah, anyone.
Any fighter, dead or alive?
Or anyone.
No, anyone.
Okay, well, I wouldn't want to fight Mike Tyson ever. So I'm just going to say that. I have to say there's one thing that I would have loved to do, and that was to share the octagon with Anderson Silva. I think, you know, he was still in the top 10, but before we left, but that was one of those, he's a hero of mine. And he's one of the guys that, I mean, just to be in there with him must be incredible. And I would have loved that. So if there's any guy if there was ever a possibility, he's the guy I would love to have shared the octagon with.
Vian Vampach, if I'm saying that right. How do you cancel out all the silly noise?
The same as the you know, the good noise. When you get in there, you have to cancel out all noise. You hear noise, and that's what it is. And you have to approach it as such. I think when I go out there to fight, when everybody says ridiculous stuff, when everybody says you have no chance of doing it, you know, you have to cancel that out, but you also have to cancel out there's no way you lose, you are the greatest ever, because you can't buy into your own hype. You can believe in yourself, but you can't believe you're untouchable, because that's when you become touchable.
Our name, Martin 13. 2 questions. What's your favorite Cup of MMA song? What's the odds of me putting this?
That is hilarious. You know, okay, now that is a baie moeilike vraag. That's a very, very tough question. My favorite Cup of MMA song.
This is probably what you can sing to Strickland. Kom maar weer.
Kom maar weer. Ja, waarschijnlijk kom maar weer.
Is it true that they're not allowed to play your walkout song in the gym?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I don't play my walkout song actually ever.
So even if it slips on a playlist?
No, we make sure that's not on a playlist, because it gets me into and that's one thing I have to say. I know so many South Africans want me to walk out to this song, and I understand that. But my walkout song has a very, very big purpose. When I hear that song, and I've had this same walkout song for 10 years. And you have to know it gets me going, because the first time I walked out to this song was against Gareth McLellan. Shout out to him.
Only guy
and
in UFC who's
got the only guy who's ever beat me, and that was the first time I walked out to this song. And you kept it. And I kept it, and I know. But yeah, it's 10 years now that I've walked out to this song. And it's just, that song is, when that song plays, it's go time. Yeah. So when it plays in the gym, it has happened before.
Does everyone scatter?
Everybody went, okay, this is
sparring against you when that song comes on.
Sparring gets very intense because now immediately my brain goes, this is fight time.
For those watching and listening, what is that? What is your walkouts?
Live It Up by Airborne. So it's funny because Airborne is you would think it's an old school rock band because they still have the proper old school rock genre, how they, the live shows, it's amazing. But it's not an old school band, and they are an Australian band. I was supposed to go watch them once when I was on my way to Australia, but didn't realize. But when I fought Robert Whittaker, I wanted to change my song because he's Australian, and I didn't want to walk out to the Australian song. And I tried, and I just said, nah, it's okay. I'm just going to walk out to the Australian song, and it's fine. It's my song.
You've seen now the growth of sort of MMA in South Africa now, but for you personally, what do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered in the sport, in the UFC level and in South Africa?
Yeah, in the UFC level, I want to be remembered, and that was my goal from the first time I stepped into Hexagon and now Octagon, was to be the greatest to ever do the sport. To be seen as, and it's a very hard accomplishment because it's always going to come down to opinion. There's no way to, are you going to go, he's never been beaten, is the greatest? No. And for some people, that means he's the greatest. But, there's so many ways and so many opinions on who people think are the greatest. But I want to be undoubtedly the greatest fighter to ever walk this earth and be in that discussion. Be a guy that people argue with about, is he the greatest or not? And for South Africa, I can't be a pioneer for the sport in South Africa because there were many before me. But what I can be is play a big part in the next champions of the next generation in the sport.
Yeah, it's amazing, champ. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cooks, thanks.
Because thank you. I mean, rounds on Dricus after this, eh?
Yeah, 50K.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And also conversion rate.
I was
exchange
just
rate.
on a 28-hour flight for everybody. That's why my eyes have bags under them. They're dark eyes.
Yeah, so nothing to do with
What's the
Strickland.
front of the bus, though?
Yeah. And you guys, thanks for joining us on Super Sport Unplugged. And we'll be back again soon. Cheers, guys.